Thank God for bringing us through the book of Numbers. We have now come to the third last session for this book, which we shall, God willing, finish on Tuesday, and also the last session of the week. And we have many things to be thankful for. It is another week of God's grace being shown to us, another week of His mercies preserving us, and we have every reason to be thankful for it. Christians, especially in countries that are more prosperous, are sadly less thankful than we think. We are very prone to complain about everything, though we have everything. For example, in our country, we are very quick to compare the quality of food from this store to this other store. Or we would have many things to say about the weather throughout the day, even though God is the one that gives it. Even one's education and work is a comparison as though God did not supply each one with his own individual work for his own glory. This greatly hinders us, for it causes us to lose sight of God's love to each one of us, every second of our lives. And it hinders us from being gratuitous towards giving of what we have as a tribute to Him, or doing the duty we ought to do for Him. Therefore, we must learn from this passage well when God restores the children of Israel with their representatives, the Levites and priests, to Himself. For then, in whatsoever we do, we will give and fulfill our duty to the glory of our King. Our first point, give in gratitude to God. At this point in time, God has given victory to the Israelites over the Midianites, whom He had commanded to destroy in the earlier part of chapter 31. And from verse 25 to 31, He commands that the spoil that they had obtained from their conquests be portioned in order to give to the priests and the Levites. The spoils are first split in half between the men of war and the congregation, before it is further portioned to Eleazar the priest and the Levites, respectively. So we read from 25 to 31. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of men and of beasts, thou and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the prey into two parts, between them that took the war upon them, who went out to battle, and between all the congregation, and levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men of war which went out to battle, 1 soul of 500, both of the persons, and of the beasts, and of the asses, and of the sheep. Take it of their half, and give it unto Eleazar the priest, for an heave offering of the Lord. And of the children of Israel's half, thou shalt take one portion of 50, of the persons, of the beeves, of the asses, of the flocks, of all manner of beasts, and give them unto the Levites, which keep the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. And Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. So this portioning occurred as such. The priest, Eleazar, is given 1 out of 500 of the spoil of the men of war. And the Levites are given 1 out of 50 out of the spoil of the congregation. This portioning, as we see in the last verse, in verse 31, is under the direction of Moses and Eleazar, and is in accordance to the command of the Lord. And interestingly enough, what was given out of the spoil of the men of war is called later on the Lord's tribute. And this tribute is given to Eleazar the priest, verse 37 to 41. And the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 615, and the beasts were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 312. And the asses were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 301. And the persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. And Moses gave the tribute which was the Lord's heave offering, unto Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses. This is to be given to the priests, and then given to the Lord. For the high priest is the mediator on behalf of the people between God and men, by God's appointment. Therefore, in acknowledging him, the priest, by giving him his due, in this manner we offer of our offerings to the Lord. And the Levites would obtain their portion for the work that they did in the sanctuary as well, from the congregation of Israel. Do you know that each victory that you obtain is from the Lord? We need to remember this truth in all that we do, for we face unnumbered foes on this Christian journey, seeking to tear us apart from his love. But through each battle, he sees us through and preserves us by his grace. The worst thing we can do, having received God's favor, is to ignore it or to treat it as though it was by our own strength that we got the victory. I conquered the Midianites. Why should I give anything to the high priest? He did not even go out to the battle. It was his son, as we shall see on Monday, that went out to the battle. But I, the man of war, I risked my life at the front lines. He doesn't deserve anything. Or that we would consider that in all of our givings, we are truly giving not to men, but to God, who delights when his people recognize the source of their strength. Therefore, it is a blessed thing when in verse 48 to 54, we find the officers that went to battle coming forward to give an oblation to the Lord through the jewelry that they had obtained. For they saw that it was by God's grace that none of their men had died during the war. Verse 48 to 54. And the officers which were over thousands of the host, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near unto Moses. And they said unto Moses, Thy servants have taken the sum of the men of war which are under our charge, and there lacketh not one man of us. We have therefore brought an oblation for the Lord. What every man have gotten of jewels of gold, chains and bracelets, rings, earrings, and tablets, to make an atonement for our souls before the Lord. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of them, even all wrought jewels, and all the gold of the offering that they offered up to the Lord, of the captains of thousands and of the captains of hundreds, was 16,750 shekels. For the men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tabernacle of the congregation, for memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. It is a memorial for the children of Israel, that the children of Israel will always remember the source of their strength, and will consider what their officers did in giving to the Lord. We learn much from the example of others who have seen for themselves that the battle belongs to the Lord, and therefore they willingly, joyfully, abundantly give of what they have as a memorial to future generations of who is their strength and what they ought to do, having realized that this truth, that salvation belongs to the Lord. Our second point, fulfill our duty to God. Therefore, in chapter 32, Moses was enraged by the request of the tribes of Reuben and Gad. For how could they, after such a great example and victory, not take courage to possess the promised land? Just because the land that they conquered from Sihon and Og were lands that suited their condition because they had many sheep, does that mean that they were to act on it and to treat it as their inheritance? Therefore, Moses gives them a strong and stern rebuke in chapter 32. And we shall read from verse 1 to 15. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle, The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses, and to Eleazar the priest, and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Ataroth, and Dibon, and Jazer, and Nimrah, and Heshbon, and Elealeh, and Shebam, and Nebo, and beyond, even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore, say they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. And Moses said unto the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? And wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? Thus did your fathers when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up unto the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which the Lord had given them. And the Lord's anger was kindled the same time, and he sware, saying, surely none of the men that came up out of Egypt, from 20 years old and upward, shall see the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was consumed. And behold, ye are risen up in your father's stead, an increase of sinful men, to augment yet the fierce anger of the Lord toward Israel. For if ye turn away from after him, he will yet again leave them in the wilderness, and ye shall destroy all this people. Shall you not learn your lesson, O tribes of Reuben and Gad? Have you wandered in the wilderness for 40 years for nothing? Shall you shun the good land that God has given you? Must you discourage your brethren that have waited and journeyed alongside you till they reach this land of promise? Therefore the Reubenites and the Gadites, having been rebuked and considered this, give this humble response in verse 16 to 19. And they came near unto him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go ready, armed before the children of Israel, until we have brought them unto their place, and our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan, eastward. What a responsible and thoughtful reply. Because we have inherited first before our brethren, therefore our armed men shall fight for our brethren's inheritance, and we will wait till they have inherited their land over Jordan before we return to our own land on this side of Jordan. This was their duty to the Lord, which they willingly sought to fulfill, and which they obediently kept in the book of Joshua. How blessed is the estate of God's children who know how to be rebuked and know how to learn from their past mistakes and learn to move forward in God's strength, in love towards their brethren, who know what they ought to do and willingly perform it. Our King has commanded us to love our brethren. How then can we be loving if we only seek our own rest and not theirs? This is what we shall do. We shall fight for their inheritance, to risk our lives that they may obtain what the Lord has given to them. Is this your spirit in the church, O brethren? Or are we self-centered in our pursuit of heaven? We are on this journey together. No Christian is an army on his own. Our King has ordered and ordained for us to fight together. And shall we do anything that would discourage our brethren from waging a good warfare? If the church knew their duty to their king, they would spend more time praying for and with their brethren instead of talking about them behind their backs. Or that we would learn from Reuben and Gad to fulfill our duty to our king in love for his grace towards us and towards our brethren. Thus, from verse 20 to 33, we shall find the consummation of the matter. 20 to 33. And Moses said unto them, If ye will do this thing, if ye will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord, until he have driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterward ye shall return, and be guiltless before the Lord, and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build you cities for your little ones, and folds for your sheep, and do that which have proceeded out of your mouth. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spake unto Moses, saying, Thy servants will do as my Lord commandeth. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our cattle shall be there in the cities of Gilead. But thy servants will pass over, every man armed for war, before the Lord to battle, as my Lord saith. So concerning them Moses commanded Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moses said unto them, If the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over Jordan, every man armed to battle before the Lord, and the land shall be subdued before you, then he shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, As the Lord hath said unto thy servants, so will we do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, that the possession of our inheritance on this side Jordan may be ours. And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with the cities thereof in the coast, even the cities of the country round about. This inheritance could only be obtained because God was the keeper of his people. And we find here that even the half of the tribe of Manasseh joined with Reuben and Gad in taking this inheritance. But why could they do so? Why could they trust God that he will fulfill his promises to them? It is because they had witnessed it throughout their lifetime. Thus, our final point, witness his preservation. From verse 33, 1 to 49, we find Moses tracing the journeys of the children of Israel from Egypt to the edge of the promised land. So in verse 1 to 2, we see, These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt, with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord. And these are their journeys according to their goings out. Why does God inspire Moses to write this here? We find a reason when we look at the few instances which Moses highlights something about the location which they traveled to. For example, verse 9, it says, And they removed from Marah and came unto Elim, and in Elim were 12 fountains of water, and 70 palm trees, and they pitched there. Again, verse 14, And they removed from Alush, and encamped at Rephidim, where was no water for the people to drink. Then verse 38 to 40. And Aaron the priest went up into Mount Hor at the commandment of the Lord, and died there, in the 40th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the first day of the 5th month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died in Mount Hor. And King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the children of Israel. How did Israel reach the Jordan River? How was it possible when they had no water to drink, as we saw in verse 14? How was it possible when, after their high priest died, they could still have an intercessor after him? How was it possible that when the Canaanites raised themselves up against Israel, they were preserved and reached the edge of the promised land? The answer is found at the start of their journeys in verse 3 to 4. Verse 3 to 4. And they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which the Lord had smitten among them. Upon their gods also the Lord executed judgments. God was with them. It wasn't because of them at all that they could travel from Ramses all the way to the edge of Jordan. It was the Lord that smote Egypt and defeated all their gods. And it was the Lord that led them out. And surely if He would lead them out, He will lead them all the way. He will provide for them with fountains of water at Elim. He provided them with drink in due time at Rephidim. He provided Eliezer to take his father's place on Mount Hor. He provided victory over the Canaanites who were aggressive against them. And He will provide for you. Don't ever doubt that. Let us therefore give to Him. Let us therefore fulfill our duty to the one who loves us, to the one who has bought us by His blood and has promised to lead us safely home. Let us pray.